Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to sew this bustier bodice. I'll be using this to sew a drawstring dress which I'll be uploading. However, you can use it anyhow you choose. I've also listed out all the measurements and equipment needed for this dress in the description box. With that being said, let's get started. So as usual, the first thing to do is to draw the straight line along the edge of the paper. I like to do this just to ensure I'm working on a straight line. And then after this, we're going to mark out our horizontal measurements, which is our chest point, our bust point, our under bust, and our waistline. I'm doing the same thing on the other side as well. And then I connect. After connecting, you label it. Then from here, you mark your neck width and your shoulder measurement, half of your shoulder measurement. You also mark the half of the shoulder measurements on the chest line and you connect. And then after connecting, you come down by 1 inch and you connect to the neck width. And then from here, you mark 3 inches for the neck depth and you connect to the neck width. After connecting, you divide this line by 2 and then you come in by 0.5 inch to draw the front armhole measurement. Then after drawing the armhole, you're going to mark our nipple to nipple measurements on the bust line and on the waistline. And then you connect. And then from the bust line, you come down by 1 inch. While on the waistline, you go by 0.5 inch on both sides. And you connect. After connecting on the under bust line, we are going to mark 0.5 inch away from the dart line on both sides. And then you connect to the waistline. And then from here, we are going to use our French curve to connect it upward. When you're through with it, you're going to measure the distance from the bust line to the under bust line. Mine is 3 inches. So you're going to be marking 3 inches round the bust line. So that means you're putting your tape rule at the bust point and then you're marking 3 inches away from it to form a circle. And then on the shoulder line, you're going to divide it by 2 and then you are going to connect to the bust point. Then from here, measure the distance of the darts on the under bust line. Mine is 1.5 inches. And then this 1.5 inch, we are going to divide it on the shoulder dart. 1 inch for the point facing the armhole and then ½ inch for the side facing the center front. And then you connect it to the bust point. If yours is 2 inch, you can use 1.3 and 0.7. And then also we are going to mark 0.25 inch away from both sides and connect using a French curve. So in all, the total shoulder dart will be 2 inches. Then when you're through with this, you're going to mark 0.5 inch from the chest point. That's where I want my curve to start from. You can use 1 inch below the chest line or you can use directly on the chest line, anyhow you want it to be. And then you connect it the way I did. And then connect also to the armhole if you want a yoke. If you don't want a yoke, you can go down by 0.5 inch and then connect. So this one is for when you are sewing a bustier without a yoke. But if you're using a yoke, I will show you how to cut the yoke later on. Then from this point, we are going to mark 1/4 of our bust measurement plus 2 inch for the shoulder dart. Remember we added 1.5 and then we still added extra 0.5 on both sides. While on the waist, we are going to mark 1/4 of our waist measurement plus 1 inch for the waist dart. Then you connect it. Then also remember to add your sewing allowance. I'm using 1.5 inch. Then from here you are going to cut it out. Then before cutting, you add half an inch sewing allowance as well, and then you cut. So now if you want the yoke, you're going to connect it the way I did. So when you're cutting all the way to the chest line. And then also we are going to remove the darts that we added. We are not going to use that part. So this is what we are going to use. You can label it your center front, your side front, and your yoke. And that will be all for the front pattern. For the back pattern, we are going to draw out our line as usual and connect our horizontal measurements. But here we are using only the chest points, the bust point, and the waist line. And then you connect it. Then you mark your 3 inch and 7.5 inch measurements and you connect. Then 1 inch down and connect as well. And then here you are going to go by 1 inch for the neck depth. Then you divide this line by 2, and then on the chest line you mark your nipple to nipple measurements, and also on the waistline you connect it. The waistline you go by 0.5 and you connect to the chest line. Then after connecting, you mark quarter of your bust measurements and 1.5 sewing allowance, and also quarter of your waist measurements and 1.5 sewing allowance. And then you also connect. I'm using from the chest line upward for the yoke. Just like in front, I started from the chest line for the yoke. I'm also doing the same thing for the back because they need to align together. If you used below the chest line for the yoke, you're also going to use below the chest line at the back. Also here, I don't want any darts at the back, so I'm going to mark the 1 inch inward and connect it to the chest line, and then I'll cut it out. So when I'm sewing, I will not be adding any darts to it. From this point now, we're going to cut out the yoke. I'm cutting from my actual bust measurement upward, and we are through with the back pattern. And now this is the fabric I'll be using for this BUSTIER bodice. This is Ankara fabric and pulley, and I have 2 yards for each. Remember I said I'll be using this to sew a drawstring dress. So before you start cutting, make sure you cut the down part of whatever you want to sew first before cutting the up part, that is the BUSTIER part. So I've gone ahead to cut the BUSTIER pattern. And how you're going to do it is by folding the fabric into 2. You place your pattern on it and you cut, adding half an inch sewing allowance to the necessary part. For the center front and the yoke, you'll be cutting on fold, and also you'll be cutting the lining as well. For the yoke, I use the main fabric for the lining, while the other part I use different lining. I also went ahead to cut for the back pattern, and just like I did for the front, for the yoke I used the main fabric to cut the lining. And then from here we are going to add it to the front pattern, that is the side front and the center front. Now what I want to do is to pad the bust side of this bodice, and how I'm doing it is to cut out the round part of the pattern, and then you place it on a warden and cut. I'm using the warden as the breast pad. So when you are cutting, you fold the warden in and you cut, adding half an inch sewing allowance on all sides, and then you arrange it on the center front and the side front the way I just did, and you press it down. After pressing it down, you're going to sew the side front to the center front. You're also going to do the same thing for the lining. When you're done sewing, this is what it should look like. Then from here, we're going to join the yoke to the down part. In order to sew this, you may have to pin it down. Sew one side first before sewing the other side. When you sew it, you're going to notch it and top stitch it, facing the allowance downward. And then you also do the same thing for the lining. Then now what we have to do is to join the neckline of the lining to the fabric. So you're going to arrange it as I did, and you sew 1/2 inch. And then after sewing, you're going to notch it also. Then after notching it, you open it facing the allowance to the lining, and then you stitch. After doing that, you're going to sew the back as well. And how you're going to do it is to join the yoke to the down part using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. Since there's no dart here, there will be no need for us to sew any dart. And then after doing that, you're going to top stitch it facing the allowance to the downside. And then after top stitching, we are going to join the neckline of the lining to the fabric on both sides. Then after joining as well, you're going to notch it as well, and then you stitch on the lining. And then from here, we're going to join the shoulder of the front part of the front bodice to the shoulder of the back bodice, then making sure that you align the middle point. Then you sew. After sewing, it should be something like this. And then from here, we are going to join this side of the back pattern to the side of the front pattern. And that will be all for this tutorial. After joining the sides, what will be left is to add the zip, the sleeve, and the down parts, depending on what you want to sew. So in my next video, I'll be showing you how to sew a drawstring dress using this bustier bodice. If you did enjoy this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Also turn on the post notification bell so that when I post a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.